Hello everyone and welcome to the first round of the 2019 Maricopa Meadows Open presented by Dynamic Disc. Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guys. We're here in Maricopa at the Copper Sky course, and we see a few of the local dignitaries, including the mayor, throwing out the first disc. I've got to, of course, thank Lucky Disc Golf, who is our primary coverage support sponsor here this weekend, in addition to the PDJ. And of course, we also have individual tee sign sponsors. Joe, thank you for being just that on hole number 1. 366 feet. Pretty straightforward here as we open up on an early Saturday morning. The only mistake you cannot make here on hole number 1 is to push it too far to that right side. That is considered out of bounds in the gravel area. Young superstar Anthony Barela just throwing a little midi. No problem, just a mid-range shot up there. Of course, looks relatively effortless. And Graham Russell, who's got a really unique story and throwing style. We'll talk about that more as the round goes on, going with a forehand, finding that left side little tree. And Paul Ulibarri not quite getting over on that enough. And he's going to find himself out in the open. Again, if you're going to make a mistake, left side wide open, no problems over there. This is Stephen Gailey. Stephen from the Phoenix metro area, if I recall. Also out on that left side in the opening. Graham's going to give it a little bit of a run, but I think he's going to be totally content walking away with a par 3 here. And Steven's got a little bit of a pause. Oh, and almost picks up a birdie, but he's got a little bit of a pause where he stalls for a moment when he's throwing his putt. Something I had to get used to and wasn't expecting there on the very first hole. We'll see if I adapt. And I guess speaking of adapting, Paul Ulibarri, first tournament, or maybe a second here with his new sponsor in Discraft. So he's probably going through a little bit of an adjustment himself. No, that's not supposed to happen. Barela, OB after getting a nasty little roll off of the basket. And Jacob McDaniel, who found himself here on the featured card, that might have been a little bit of a special case or possibly fundraising effort, something along those lines. He finds himself here, and Graham voted on as Graham walks away with the first par of the day. Stevens in for his par. Yuli's going to move over, take his par. Now Barela's going to be able to bring it back in 1 meter, even if that's closer to the basket. He's going to have the penalty stroke assessed and have the tap in, and you don't want to be eating a bogey for breakfast. That is no good. All right, we'll give it to him. First hole. Let's take a look at hole number 2. Thank you to Quinny for being our sponsor. Hole 2, a little bit shorter, 339 feet. Still relatively straightforward here. You've got plenty of room to the right. You don't want to go deep directly behind the basket or have it skip too hard or find yourself left side of the basket, because you could find that concrete area which is out of bounds. It's safe and out in the middle there for Jacob. Now here Graham is not with the forehand, but instead of backhand, and you may be wondering, well, why is he standing still? Well, as we've talked to him in years past, he actually has had some knee problems, and rather than possibly re-injuring with a run-up, he's really just adopted the stand and deliver style of throw. So whether a hole's 200 feet or 600 feet, you're going to see him standing still. Very, very impressive. Impressive like Yuli's drive. That seems to have just the right amount of speed and power. Steven doesn't seem to like it, but I'm not sure why. It looks just about perfect. I believe that might be a Firebird or a very overstable fairway driver of sorts. And off on that right side seems to be a popular place to be. Jacob not able to connect again. You see virtually no wind whatsoever, which I wouldn't say is incredibly common out in Maricopa. And just like that, Barela is going to negate the hole 1 bogey that he opened with. Uli's got another look for birdie. Going to be high left chain. Just doesn't look like he's fully comfortable. Those first 2 putts that we've seen, the first one of course being a little bit longer, but that one definitely didn't look like he was comfortable. Graham's going to pick up the birdie, as will the park job by Stephen Gailey. And both Uli and Jacob tapping in for their pars. They'll remain at even as we move over to the 3rd hole. Oh, and William and Jay are the sponsors here. Hole number 3, 410 feet, so our longest thus far. And here's Graham with his standstill. The only mistake to make is to go long here. So the one thing you cannot do is go long. Anywhere short of the basket's going to be fine. You just don't want to go long. And looks like that might be a little bit short. Solid shot by Steven. Also a bit short though. You know Barela has more than enough power. And he's asking for it to slow down. But unfortunately the bush slows it down, which is OB. No. One of the rare times I find myself talking on camera. It's just such an instinct to let those kids know they shouldn't pick up the disc and throw them back. I guess they're just trying to be helpful, but Jacob's push short and left. Maybe if Uli's putt isn't dialed, we'll see if he can get a park job or get dialed in off the tee. And that looks to be a bit short as well. Kind of surprising to see so many short attempts here on this 410 footer. Not that 410 feet's a short or easy distance, but a little bit surprised to see this much shortage. Shrinkage? No, shortage. And Barela not able to save the par. So a little bit of a roller coaster here to get things started. Barela opens with the bogey, then gets the birdie, and then follows it back up with what looks like it will be a bogey. And Jacob's long jumper. And Steven also isn't able to connect. So Uli looks to be about circle's edge. Ah! Left corner pocket. I did not remember that even being said. That's exactly where it was. Uli a little bit disgusted with it. He still gets to write down the 2 on the scorecard, as does Graham. Jacob coming right back at me, and he'll ultimately walk away with a par. So he's got 3 pars to get started. I'd like to start picking up some birdies out here. They're certainly available. This course only been in the ground a matter of months. I don't even think it's been a full year. I know it's undergone a design and then a few adjustments and possibly even a little bit of a redesign, but Maricopa really getting on board with supporting disc golf, which is awesome to see. Michael's our sponsor here of hole number 4 at 290 feet. And I think if you took all of the trees on this course and added them up, I think you'd have hole number 4 here. Few bushes, few trees, just really can play up and over. All of these guys with plenty of power to do so. Biggest challenge is not losing that disc in the sky. And that's a little bit short and left, but looks to be a really good shot there by Uli. And no, you're not just stuck with me for commentary for all 3 rounds. We're going to have some special guests coming up in future rounds, but we wanted to make sure everyone could see the action, and sometimes hunting down commentators can be a little bit tough, which is why I'm knocking this out, giving you the play-by-play and going with a overhand shot. I was about to call it a baseball throw, as some refer to it, but the overhand by Jacob seems to be pretty accurate. Just playing the wide hyzer. Seems like the only smart play here on hole 4. Jacob, who went a little long, I think he was pushing near the OB but didn't quite find it, and instead he's going to find his first birdie of the round. And although there's a little traffic in that area, that could be distracting. I'm not sure that was impacted Graham at all. We see a few other cars kind of rolling through. Graham's going to remain at that 2 under. And really not much movement on that flag. And well, that could be distracting, I suppose. Uli goes to 2 under, picking up the last 2 birdies in a row. Barela, who's gone birdie, correction, he's gone bogey, birdie, bogey, and now, okay, who needs 3s? Steven says that's in his range, and he'll move to 2 under. 3 of the guys moved to 2 under through hole 4. All right, we're going to throw in an extra hole. Thanks to Floyd for being a sponsor here. And this one is what's going to ultimately help make up the 19 holes. Instead of going from 4 directly to 5, we now have hole A, 375 feet. And using a little bit of the topography, that hole is actually down in a gully, but yet then is elevated. So as we see when we get closer to the pin, provides a little extra challenge. Just blowing stuff up. Steven's in range. That's down in the gully where you can't see it, so that's good. This might be a luster destroyer, if I recall what Anthony said earlier in the day, and it looks like he's going to have a look at it from there. Graham's lone par on the previous hole puts him at the bottom of the box. Now here's what I was saying, an elevated pin, which can mess with your head a little bit here. Sometimes I wonder if Steven just doesn't want to let go of the disc. And as I see him throughout the round, it seems like he's just really attached. Jacob finds the side of the basket. Unfortunately, that one rolls away just a little bit. After Barela had gone long, he's coming back at the pin. And you can count that. So, Barela messes up his flow of bogey, birdie. But in this time, it's on the good side. He takes the birdie, moves to 1 under. And Uli's putting woes seem to continue here. That's a very within range, very makeable putt. A little bit of adjustment on a hillside, but nothing he should have to worry about. And so we've seen a few very easy ones get by Ulibarri here to get started. Looks like Barela's the only one to take advantage here on hole number A, hole letter A, as he moves to 1 under. Still very tight among the group. Hole 5 brought to you by Brittany Zimmerman. Thank you, Brittany, who's out there. She had to withdraw from the event shortly before it happened. She actually was in a car accident. Thankfully, she's okay. Actually, she's out here caddying. And that one very tough to spot, but we see it come down short and left, or maybe about pin high and left. 369 feet. The mistake, really far left inside the fenced-in area, and I believe there's an OB fence off to the right as well. A little bit tougher to find, but there is, I believe, an OB fence over there as well. Stay away from the light post. You're going to see another overhand. This one I'm able to track. That'll be all right. Be the first to admit, finding just the right filming position on this hole is a little bit tough because you want to see great shots like that land, but then also fighting a little bit of that sky. I tell you, film guy problems here. Oh, bang, bang. Steven from downtown connects on the jumper on hole 5. A little love from the rest of the card. Graham over there for the low 5. And maybe only at about 35 feet at most, maybe 40. We see Jacob trying to get a little bit tricky. He's just trying to fight around the bush that he found. Here's Uli with another look at birdie. This time he connects. A little bit of that wind trying to be relevant out here. You've got to watch out. If Barela's putter gets hot, and he can manage to stay away from the out-of-bounds area, he can turn in some ridiculously good scores, and Graham, although being closest to the pin, isn't able to convert. Barela still without a 3 on his card, without a par. Nose up, straddle. Looks to be effective now for Jacob, and Graham will tap in, and we're going to move over. Hole 6, plenty of danger. Chris is our sponsor. Thank you so much, Chris. 239 feet here from this pro tee. And you're essentially throwing over OB the entire way. It kind of plays as an island. And that's exactly where you want to play it as an island. Wasn't prepared for Uli to go so much higher than we just saw. And he's down looking uphill at the putt. That should still give him a look. I think anywhere inbounds is all you're fighting for here. And up and over and inbounds, along with a sigh of relief there by Steven. During the other round, I will give you a little bit different look. I'll give you an angle from behind the basket instead. But that's also inbounds, so you really can't complain if you're putting yourself in bounds and for sure not taking, or seemingly for sure not taking a 4. That's a good start here. And gotta say, pretty happy, all 5 guys on the island. Sit. Oh, that doesn't seem right. 3 worst words in disc golf. You're still out. Yeah. Oh, but now you're in. Jacob working a little harder than you'd like to here on this 269-foot island hole, but he at least walks away with the par. Oh, and Yuli's got that one dialed in. I was doing a jumping jack. You couldn't see it, but I was actually doing a jumping jack right behind the basket. So that's some premier focus there by Yuli. Same with Graham Russell. As he said, a little twig getting all up in his business. And Steven is at best looking at the par, as was Jacob. And we had the 3 birdies on the card. And Pat Perman, Paul Ulibarri's mom, huge supporter, an amazing woman. Hole number 7. Dan and Colin, thank you for being video blog sponsors. But here we are, our first par 4, 712 feet. Interesting, the meters reversed equal the feet. Wow, my mind is blown. So that's pushing hard left, exactly where you don't want to be. You see the next card, you see the basket way out there. This hole is straight ahead. It might sound all too obvious, but center of the fairway is really the prime place to be. If you're pushed up left against the shrubbery and the tree line or that bush line on the left, obviously that can come into play in your throw. But then if you go too far right and you find yourself over the train tracks, you're actually going to be out of bounds. And Steven, I believe, has one of the best drives that you could be looking for here. It's really easy because you know OB is to the right, so you really just think, don't throw OB, don't throw OB. But you really can't just bail out left because you could be up against the tree line, as we're going to see a few of these shots. So Steven's in a really good position at this point.
Thank you.
I'm not sure he quite executed that approach as much as he would have liked to, but the drive was in great position. Here's an overhand. Effective but short. And this was what Yuli was afraid of. He's pushed to the left, and now he's going to have to play out and around. A little patent pending, back to the basket. And that actually carried way off to that right side and found himself OB. Graham had too much angle, but somehow it bounced back out for him, or did a little cut roll to find the fairway at least. And Anthony also going to have to play that left side. Trying to go out and around. So certainly plays as a true par 4. If you get it in 3, you've done at least 2 really good shots. Oh, and Yuli trying to save the par from way up on Route 66 up there. Steven's got the rock in motion. And it feels like he's just a little bit off. I love the height he's had on almost every attempt. It just feels like he's just a bit off. That one finds the bottom of the pole. And Graham, uncharacteristic. So Yuli salvages the bogey after going out of bounds. That's going to push him to 3 under par. Seems to be a pretty popular score for the moment. Notice the difference in clothing out there. We see Anthony Barela in shorts and a short sleeve shirt. Graham rocking pants and a short sleeve shirt. And then his caddy, Brittany, bundled up like she's going on an Alaskan expedition. Video sponsor, Dave. Appreciate it so much as we move over to hole 8. Hole 8, I'm going to say somewhat similar to what we just saw from 7. 625 feet, another par 4. However, this one has a blind tee shot. The same OB railroad tracks are on the right side. Yeah. And that's a really good shot there by Steven. I love the placement there. Again, putting a premium on placement. Not wanting to mess with the little bit of wind that we're starting to hear. I think Yuli should like that. And I don't mean to sound repetitive, but you're looking at a lot of the same stuff we saw from the previous hole, number 7. You put yourself out in the middle, give yourself a look. Probably have anywhere from a 250-foot to a 300-foot approach. And that's exactly what you're trying to do here. Stay out of the left, stay out of the right. Try and keep the disc in frame there, Miller. Okay. So he's off to that right-hand side. It's the first time I've seen Steven throw a forehand, and I'm just going to say I'm not sure I fully understand it. I'm not sure if he was just trying to play the wind there, but he had plenty of room to the right for what looked like it should have been a relatively easy forehand, or a correction, backhand. And there's a forehand choice that I got away from Anthony Barela. I understand that one a little bit more with the way he was pinched up. But Barela finds himself going out of bounds. And at best, he's looking at saving a bogey now. Jacob seems content with the drop in for what should be a par, and Graham isn't quite dialed in on that putter. A little bit surprised that Graham, I've always been really impressed with his putting, and I know that one was outside the circle, but he hasn't quite had it what I've used to seeing from him in the past. And Yuli just trying to make really quick, easy work here of hole 8. I think he played it pretty much textbook. And Barela, who we've seen doesn't really care for pars, ends up walking away with that bogey. Couple pars by the other guys. And we're just about at that halfway point. We're going to move over to hole 9, 290 feet. J-Ray, Team Dynamic Disc, and all over the country. Thank you so much, J-Ray, for being a supporting sponsor. And we're back up against a fence here on hole 9. The forehand is definitely the play. Or if you're not quite ready like I wasn't, a backhand roller works. Trying to just fight that fence line on that right side by Steven. Jacob's going to keep it low. Maybe play for a little bit of a skip, and I think he gets it. During round 3, I'll give you the catch angle instead. And that one gets a little bit away from Graham. And it's tough to see just how much he comes back. We'll find him on the green, but Barela can keep it low, play that skip shot. I feel like that's just about the right spot and the right speed for this hole. I'd love for you to leave in the comments. Let me know, is that a play that you would think about doing? As we just saw from Steven, throw down the roller knowing you've got that fence line on the right side. You could just literally ride that fence line down the entire way. Is that something that you would think about, or do you think that's not necessarily an effective move? I'd love to know. I love the creativity, but I want to know if that's something that you think you would attempt out here on a hole like hole 9. As you see, that fence line just mimics the fairway, and Uli, little extra body English, brings that one in for the birdie. We see and feel the wind picking up a little bit. But Uli pushes himself to 5 under par with that. So after a slow start, seems to be picking things up. Barela's in for the birdie, and here's Steven. We're going to see a few pars, and going to move over to hole number 10. Hole 10, thanks to Christy. We appreciate the support. 412 feet. OB fence on the right, but also an OB area on the left. It doesn't have a fence line, so to speak, but it is definitely out of bounds. Uli turns this one over too much. What? Plays it off the fence. Uli isn't exactly thrilled with his effort, but I think he's going to like the result. A couple of young spectators busting out their coats, getting ready. And now here's another roller. So I guess Steven definitely just trying to keep it away from that left side OB. And if he can find the fence on the right, he's okay with that. Kind of a natural barrier and backstop the entire way. Somebody swearing at me? Yeah, looking for a little bit of a skip there, as they're saying, but didn't quite get it. So although this course relatively wide open with a smattering of trees and other obstacles, looks like our players have to get a little bit creative. We've seen overhands, backhands, forehands, rollers. So everybody using their own unique style to go ahead and attack the course. Uli playing off a fence in the air. This is Anthony. And Anthony's in jeopardy of getting a par. Sometimes all you can do is shrug. That looked pretty solid. I couldn't quite see the direct angle for mine. It looked like that coulda or shoulda stuck, but unfortunately it doesn't for Graham, and Yuli takes full advantage of playing off the, I'll say, the center field fence. And you see the wind on Jacob's shirt, a little bit on the chain, but you don't see the flag moving as much. Maybe they've weighted those down just to make things seem less windy over in the home area of Emporio, where we see Dynamic Disc headquartered. Maybe that's a tactic. And Graham taking it like a champ. That's all you can do, buddy. Oh, but his caddy Brittany's smiling. Steve, thanks for supporting and being a sponsor as we move over to hole 11, 357 feet. And while we're at it, I want to thank Lucky Disc Golf again for being so supportive of the coverage. Pete Cashin, Dynamic Disc, everyone else out there, I appreciate all of the help and the support that you guys give throughout our video blog coverage. Also, quick shout out to Keen Footwear and D-Curve Optics, who helped me personally and therefore help the disc golf community at large. And I appreciate both of those companies as well. All right, Stephen, how many rollers or turnover?
Oh, my goodness.
What do you, all right, we'll go with it. Another play off the fence. Forehand doesn't quite clear the backstop. We'll see if Graham's does. Looks like it does. Clears the backstop over there. And now Jacob's got a little work to do. There is OB left and then OB deep of the basket. And he's not only crossed the cement path, but then found also another fence line back there. But either way, he's out of bounds. And Steven has the right speed and angle to put it right next to the pin. Yuli's jumper, really not a chance. Sorry, Yuli. That had no chance. I love you, buddy, but no chance. Don't be so mad, AB. It's still a birdie. It's not a par, man. So Jacob, after going out of bounds, has that left and cleans up the bogey. Steven here trying to maintain, just take a par and move on. And he'll do just that. He stays at 3 under par. So in the early goings, we see Yuli at 6 down. And Graham, that forehand was just about perfect to put now him to 3 down. Barela at 4 down. We've got about 7 holes to play. Plenty of OB here. Ozzy, thank you for the support. 360 feet. There's a Mando tree that you must, or a pole that you must go to the right of. So up there, you see an arrow. You must go to the right of that pole. So it really just takes out the big forehand or the big lefty shots. But also, if you carry too far to the right and find yourself over the fence line, you can be out of bounds as well. So you definitely need to throw it straight and make sure you get past that Mando. You don't want to turn it over. That's trouble. Yeah, we're going to have to take a look at that one. And Yuli does clear the Mando tree, but that's safe. That's out and to the left. Safe. I think he knows he had a little misfire there. Steven, does it have the distance? That gives him a little uphill putt. You see they're fighting a little bit of a headwind right now as that turned over. It turned over right out of my view, actually. And fighting a headwind. So having that delicate balance of going too stable and possibly hyzering out and maybe even missing that mandatory versus not being stable enough and somehow turning over and going out of bounds. That tee shot, I think, is a lot more difficult than it may even seem like. Set. Uli with a long attempt. So it looks like Graham was in fact out of inbounds. I know it looked a little questionable from the tee, but he was in bounds. And this hole's going to come out and bite Jacob after going OB and then not being able to get up and down. I believe he's looking at a double bogey there. Steven, on the other hand, has a birdie attempt. And it sounds like the bird couldn't get out of the cage. I heard a little ting there. So Graham's going to walk away with the par. And Barela trying to pick up another birdie here. Clean up aisle 12. A little bit of everything on that card. Hole 13, Shane Holly. Thank you, Shane. All the extra effort you put in on a media side, audio, video, photography, everything in between. We're moving on to hole 13, 376 feet. And this one, I don't want to say you can just grip it and rip it. You definitely cannot finish left. The OB path is what the players are standing on at first. And then you have all of this area out to the right-hand side to play to. And it's just a matter of controlling the skip or non-skip, unfortunately, in Graham's case. I think he was expecting one there. And Uli's going to put it way up into the wind. Oh. Almost killed someone. But he's safe. Everyone's safe. Well, except for his disc. That's OB. And he's pretty close to pin high. And nearly identical effort and result by Steven. And that wind a moment ago was facing directly in the to them as a headwind, and now they're playing perpendicular to that. So that's why it's a pretty strong right to left. And taking no chances after seeing a couple OB throws. Jacob puts himself way out there. That approach will work. Here's Graham trying to take the long birdie, and not today. And that grabbed nicely for Barela. It's at least 3 consecutive birdies for him, and Steven, after going out of bounds, gets the spot and saves the par. So way to remain calm, and Uli confirms his spot. As he thinks he went out just about at pin high, and like Steven, even after going OB, he'll walk away with a par. So could be bigger mistakes to be had there. We see the flag now really blowing as we're pushing into mid-morning here out in Maricopa, Arizona. Glad to be here. Thanks again to Lucky Disc Golf and Roger. Hole 14. Hole 14 kind of reminds me of hole 3 with a little bit more danger, but you're essentially throwing just out over this big wide open field. And the one thing you can't do is really go long. You could also find trouble if you go to the left. So long and left are the two places not to be. And that looks pretty turned over. And wow. What? Oh. Now that. Holy smokes is right. That is some trickery. That was OB by a mile. Catches edge and then gets pushed not only back in bounds but right toward the pin. We'll see if he can capitalize. Uli going full flex. I'm talking about the flight, not his muscles. And Steven also, he's going to put that up on an ante, trying to fight that wind, trying to fight the focus. And it's got to feel a little bit defeating, just throwing into a stiff headwind like that. And Jacob was ready to get up and fire. Sorry for the quick camera jar, but he was ready to go. And he's in the center. Probably a good 70, maybe 75 or 80 feet to the pin from there. And those jumpers by Steven, he was able to get that long one to drop on 5, and I feel like he's been close on so many others. Barela, who's pretty anti-par. Oh. Looks like he has to settle for one here on hole 14. Uli's still trying to find his stroke. I feel like that was a sarcastic clap. All right, so talk about taking advantage of a little fortunate break there. Graham, who seemingly was OB, not only gets back in bounds, rolls toward the pin, and then makes the long putt so that he can card the 2. Definitely taking full advantage. I like it. Again, Paul's mom, Pat, on the bag. Pat, love and appreciate you. Every time I come to Arizona, she's always one of the most gracious people out there helping out. 355 feet. Spencer and Jeff are both sponsors here of hole 15. And speaking of sponsors, First Light along with Dan and Boyd. Boyd, who's the man. Appreciate all the love and support along with Javier and Annie Joe, who are also gracious hosted me this weekend. So I just love coming to Arizona. So many great people. As Graham can't fight his way out of that tree. Well, he gets out of the tree, but it doesn't quite have the break that his previous hole did.
Oh, damn.
Barela giving a little scare to the group in front of him. Uli not loving his release point there. You heard him, I should say, talking to himself a little bit. It's almost tough to find the out of bounds here. This really is pretty much a straight hyzer shot for the righties, or straightforward hyzer line that should be taken. Just to clarify there, 355 feet. You can either go a little bit lower, like we're seeing by Jacob. You might, in fact, kill someone on the next tee, or you go a little bit higher, and I think you can play that wind. All these guys with more than enough power to go either route. And Graham's got a little work to do after hitting an early tree and leaving himself with that for the par. Oh. That's a pretty favorable roll, hitting the tree. And Steven, with what I thought was an instant replay there for a moment, a very similar shot, as Uli puts himself right up next to the pin. And Graham's trying to make hole 15 a little bit harder than it really is. So after the short drive, and then the approach, and then hitting off the top of the basket, a long comebacker. And finally, it's over. Graham, he's going to walk away with the bogey here on 15. Both Steven and Jacob here looking just to clean up for their pars. Little elevation here. Playing with the terrain and extra terrain at the new Copper Sky course. If you come to Maricopa, make sure you check out both courses. This one installed in the last year. And Anthony Barela with the birdie. I know there was originally a little influence by 2010 world champion Eric McCabe. I know he gave them somewhat of a blueprint or an idea of what the course could look like. I think they also went out and added additional holes, maybe changed things up a little bit. But William is our video sponsor of hole 16. And I know I said back on 4 there were a lot of trees. Well, I feel like this one has a little bit of that obstacle-like feel to it. However, at under 300 feet, I think we're going to see a lot of the players try and go up and over, just like you saw on hole 4. Very effective. Uli sitting at 6 under with Barela just a stroke ahead of him at 7. So these two are trying to pull away from the group. As you see, they have a little bit of cushion between them and the next competitors. And that's what happens sometimes if you go a little bit lower. If you've got the power and you can just take the big hyzer and take everything out of play, that might be a testament to doing just that. You go lower and you're going to bring a few of those trees into play. I think your margin for error is so much greater. But here we'll see if Jacob can shut me up and still take the birdie. Not quite. There it is. That's what I expect out of Graham. So follow-up question, I know I asked you guys back on 9 if you think that's the right player, if you ever play off of a fence, if you'd throw a roller or commit to something like that. The next follow-up question that I'd love to hear from you, and if you comment on this, you're going to be eligible to win some stuff. I'd like to know, would you change up your game plan on a course that you know has some terrain like this? Look at these rocks. You know, would you bring a disc where you're like, okay, yeah, just for hole 16, I'm going to throw a disc that maybe I don't care about as much, or maybe one that's more durable than the rest, where you're like, when I get to hole 16, I know because of the rocky green or fairway, I'm going to react or I'm going to plan accordingly. So that's the second question. You can react to both. That will up your chances in winning a giveaway. I've got some sweet action to give away, and I'd be glad to do so, but those are a couple of the questions for you. So we move over to 17, 346 feet. Jason Barela? Feel like it might be related to this guy. Jason being Anthony's dad. And we see him go deep here on hole number 17. Of course, I'm up kind of at the catch. Thought that would make for a much better angle to see where these discs actually land. It is a blind landing area from the tee, which is why I moved here, and I think Uli will be quite content with that. That's a solid shot. Just a nice hyzer. Also effective. I want to thank Doug for helping out with some of the graphics. I've been adjusting those as the off-season came about, and we're going to see how things play out here for 2019, but I hope you enjoy the new and improved graphics. I think every version of graphics that have come along lately have been improved on what I've had in the past, so thank you to him as well. And it looks like we've got 5 guys at least on the dance floor. Some maybe are at the door of the gym, like looking at the pretty girl thinking, should I go talk to her or not? And Graham says, no, I'm going to stick by the punch bowl. Jacob's at the dance. Oh, yeah. A professional sneezer held off just in time for the release there. I like it. Jacob cards the birdie. I'm not sure if Anthony's, yeah, okay, maybe he's old enough. He's probably been to a prom or a homecoming. Certainly a young stud, though, that we're going to see on tour more this year. Taking the birdie, that's going to push him to 9 under par with just 1 hole left to play. 19-hole configuration at each of the 3 rounds this weekend. 2 courses, 3 rounds, each being 19 holes. And a birdie for Steven. Remember, they played up to hole number 4 and then played hole A, and then they'll play 5 through 18. Birdies galore. So many birdies. Let's move into our final hole 18. Yeah, Mom. Blow it up. Vincent Charles Cummings III, our 18th hole sponsor, 250 feet, but we're going to make it a little more dangerous. There's going to be some mandatory action here. Oh, and that actually hits the Mando tree, so you have to go to the left of that tree that he just hit, and then the basket plays down. And it looks like he's missed the Mando. Really, the forehand shot, if you're trying to park this hole, the forehand shot is what you need. Yeah. Okay, that. Yeah, great shot by Jacob. Looks like he might have hung that one a little tight, but yeah, it looks like the card confirms that he missed it. And speaking of miss, I believe I missed Anthony's tee shot actually on this one. He kind of got up and threw when I wasn't expecting to. So I apologize about that. He threw a really solid shot. I believe he's within 20 of the basket or closer. Oh. And Steven, who's been so close on those jumpers today, from the drop zone, and more metal. So par can be saved. And Yuli's going to walk away with a par. Jacob with the birdie puts him to even. And the park job, I should say, there by Anthony. Steven's going to tap in. So thank you guys for joining us again. Thank you, Lucky Disc Golf, for making it all happen. Of course, thank you to Maricopa and Russ and everyone else involved in the event, and our presenting sponsor in Dynamic Discs. Looking forward to seeing you guys for round number 2 coming from the other course on the other side of town. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.